when people talk about growth drivers in the public relations industry, it seems that not a day goes by without one particular word coming up again and again. And that is, of course, content, whether we're talking about content creation or indeed content marketing. I think in some respects it has become something of a buzzword within the industry. Content is now used to refer to or to describe all manner of public relations strategies and execution and campaigns. And our next panel is going to explore this area in further detail and hopefully figure out exactly how independent PR firms are capitalizing on the content opportunity. Like all of the panels today, we have heads of some very special agencies. Interestingly, something we noted beforehand, they are all from different countries, and indeed, they're all very different types of agencies. And I suspect that will add a pretty useful dimension to this discussion. So without further ado, let me introduce, furthest left, Clare Parsons is founder and chair of Lansons, a UK firm that is probably best known for its corporate and financial capabilities, but actually has stakes now in a wide range of other agencies, and Lansons, of course, is a member of PROI. Next to Clare, we have Jonas, who is PR strategist at Sweden's Jung Relations, famous for its very highly creative consumer PR work for Absolute and others, also a PR agency. I'm guessing the only one that has a fashion showroom in its lobby. Directly next to Jonas is Andreas Fischer-Appelt, founder and managing director of German powerhouse Fischer-Appelt, probably a PR agency that doesn't really require much introduction, one of the largest firms in Germany, if not indeed the largest. And to my left, Chaim Haas, who's chief innovation officer and executive director of KNext at US independent PR firm Kaplow. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our panel to discuss content. Right, so to start things off, I'm aware that we just had a coffee break, so we'll have maybe a smooth reintroduction to the conference. If we could start with the video from Fischer-Appelt in Germany, and it's an example of, I think, how PR firms and the PR industry are using content in a different way, in a way that plays to its strengths. And Andreas, maybe you'd like to say something about this video?
That was part for a brand channel of Mercedes-Benz, and they are doing a lot of like video content right now, as well for YouTube channels, and that's a big new trend, I think.
Telling true stories about real brand empathy and enthusiasm, about extraordinary people, their life, their passion, and their profession. Stories that spread themselves as branded content through the net. That's the approach of the Mercedes web platform, MB. Telling the real thing made us search the most moving stories and emotional insights on bizarre, inspiring, and touching people.
I am Bart Hickey, about 50 years old. I'm legally blind. I run an auto repair shop, and it's great to be here.
The blind Bart Hickey is probably the most committed mechanic Mercedes has on Earth. He's never seen a Mercedes in his entire life, but his enduring passion for cars, and especially for Mercedes-Benz, gave him the ability to see with his hands. With amazing precision, he's bringing back the shine to old and damaged cars. That's why his friends and customers love him.
The guy is amazing. The guy amazes the hell out of me. The fact of the matter is this guy runs a business and he's blind.
I gotta give him credit because he's not one of those people that, feel sorry for himself. I think he's amazing.
And this is how he moved the hearts of the people, and how his story evolved through the net and press to over 1 million users. A true story of the blind Bart Hickey, probably the most enthusiastic Mercedes mechanic, shown on MB.
Okay, cool. Well, I think, content, in many ways, sometimes it's a bit ironic when we talk about content, because it has become an area, I think, that many different types of agencies are really trying to get involved in, whether it's advertising or digital agencies. And as we've seen there, I think when you're able to take some of those real, true-life, authentic stories and use them to drive engagement and advocacy, that is something clearly, I think, that public relations people and public relations agencies should, hopefully, have an advantage in doing. But before we get to all that, I'd like to start by asking the panel a very simple question. As I said before, not a day goes by without us hearing about how content marketing is going to be the future of the world. Content creation is now such a huge part of engagement strategies. Marketers are losing sleep, I think, more and more over what their content marketing strategy is. So for the four of you as independent agencies, I just wonder, in pure business terms, how big an opportunity do you see content being? And is it hype or is it real hope? And maybe if I can start with you, Clare.
Okay, well, we have different types of business dealing with different types of content in a different way. So Lansons itself is a strategy and issues management, problem-solving agency. And so quite a lot of our work is dealing with constraints and problem areas that mean we can't perhaps be as creative as some of the other agencies here. But that gives us huge power. Because there's so much concern about accuracy and control, then actually agencies like us can do tremendous work for them. And we're getting an enormous amount of work, particularly in things like employee communications when there are big issues, that we didn't have 3 or 4 years ago. And we're approaching it in different ways. So we've got a huge client at the moment that is a crisis situation where we are playing everything internally. And because they have enjoyed our skills internally, they will be using us as soon as it goes out. So for us, it's an example of how content and our control and our ability to manage it from the top down is giving us many more opportunities actually through the business as well. So for us, it's always been part of what we do. I think PR agencies are particularly good at it, but it's a major platform for us in a part of our business, and we're growing on the back of it quite substantially.
It's interesting you mentioned content within the framework of employee communications, because I think often when people talk about content, it is from a very consumer-oriented lens.
Yeah, but it can be broader, can't it? And our film unit does a huge amount of straightforward work, but highly valued by the clients. So.
Okay, thanks. Jonas, over to you. How do you see content making a difference for your business?
Well, first of all, I think that content marketing isn't necessarily a new thing. I think interesting companies have always produced interesting content. It may have been white papers or research reports or conceptual products or whatever. What has changed now and which provides new opportunities is that the bar for creating digital content is so much lower, and that gives us an opportunity to compete more with, for us, the competition is not necessarily between independent agencies and network agencies, but between PR-driven agencies and advertising agencies. And we see now that we have much more work coming from the marketing teams within our clients, and not necessarily from the PR manager or the communications manager. And that gives us new types of briefings from the clients. We get access to budgets that we didn't have access to some years ago. So that's a very interesting opportunity for us.
Andreas, your thoughts?
Yeah, and like for us, it's a big new market that just opened up, and we see that we have really changes in the structures among clients. And for example, like Coke, one of our major clients, Coca-Cola, they just in the US, I think they did it 1 to 2 years ago. In Germany, they do it now. They're bringing in teams of journalists to develop content, and they're working with agencies in the marketing department to develop content. The first ones were like the car makers in Germany. They have the biggest budgets, so Mercedes is, of course, our biggest client. But right now we have 100 people only working for this one client, and it's mostly content. And we see other clients of ours like Red Bull, they even established themselves as one front runner in the owned media business. They are really far off in even employing their own sports persons. And that's just the beginning, because the other marketing, big FMCG companies, they are learning from that. They are just rethinking marketing, and there's a big opportunity to all of us, I think.
Before I come to you, Chaim, I just wanted to ask you a follow-up. When you say they're rethinking marketing, how is it different from what they've done before?
Oh, it's just the complete change, because like those guys were telling me, it was a managing director of one of the big companies, it was all about push marketing in the past, and now it's all about pull marketing. So we have to, like Obama's election campaign, we have to get people attracted. We have to get brand ambassadors. People like Bart Hickey, he's a brand ambassador, nothing else. And those are the stories that count, and that's the difference. That the people like to see, but they don't want to see brands in the net, they want to see stories of brands, and that's the thing we can do, I think we naturally can do in our business, we all can do, is storytelling, of course.
Thank you. Chaim, how's content creation and marketing changing your business?
Yeah, so you know, I agree 100% with Andreas. You know, if you think about what it is that we do every single day, you know, traditionally we've been talking to the media and telling stories through the media. Now we have that opportunity to go and tell those stories ourselves, but maintain that authenticity, maintain that emotional connection that the brand has with their consumer. And I think the real opportunity in front of us is not only to create that content, but find new ways to disseminate that content. The brands are giving us, in many ways, because of the partnership that we've developed with them, that opportunity to go in and really tell their stories in new, exciting, incredibly emotional ways. We were talking earlier, you know, we've been working with Skype now for eight of their 10 years, and there's so much heart in this brand, and you know, we had this challenge set in front of us to tell their 10-year anniversary. And one of the things we said is, how do we do this when you don't want to talk about the product, you don't want to talk about the company itself, you have to talk about the emotion, you have to talk about the global connection that this brand has created between people. And we've done that many different ways, but one thing we said is, okay, let's create a video that already has a built-in audience for it, not just the Skype users, but the people who follow the person that's starring in the video. And we went out and we found a web TV celebrity. And this video wasn't just something that was local to a single market. We did something that was universal. And we'll show you the video, and you know, there's a sort of a cut version, but you'll see exactly what the payoff is and how we were able to tell the brand story authentically.
Okay, cool. Can we show that one? Thanks.
It's a small world, and because of technology, it's getting even smaller. To illustrate this, I'm going to attempt to make a call over Skype with as many countries as possible. Let's do it! Good morning, Belgium.
Good morning, Pakistan.
Welcome to Beijing.
Tiananmen Square. The southern tip of Tiananmen Square at night.
Dubai Mall.
So nice to see the beautiful view.
Right here in the harbor, you can see maybe the cruise ship.
On the count of 3, let's both make a scary face.
Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Afghanistan.
Once a week, I travel on a chopper or a C-130.
Yeah.
The landscape, man, it's just beautiful.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing. Me too. That's exactly like my life in New York.
It truly is a small world. In the first week of this project, I did a call over Skype with 140 countries. By the end of this project, 162 countries.
Good morning, Kenya.
And although we may have our differences,
Football! Soccer! Football! Soccer!
we are more alike than you might think. If you could say one thing to people all around the world, what would it be?
Just tell everyone to be happy, to be satisfied, be at peace.
Peace. Love one another.
I would tell the world to have much more love to each other.
Like 2 years ago, we had some disasters. We got a lot of love from the world. We have to say thank you for all the world.
Good night, world.
It strikes me that the two things we've seen just then are highly polished video productions that previously may have actually been the preserve of, for example, an advertising agency. And like social media before it, I think content creation is in some ways becoming something of a turf war between different types of agencies. Something like what we used to call an advertorial has now been rebranded as native advertising, and all of a sudden you see advertising agencies and digital agencies becoming much more interested in playing in that space as well. How are you competing with those types of firms, and where are you going to get the budgets when it comes to client-side organizations? Chaim, maybe I can start with you again this time.
So looking at this example and some of the other things we've done with Skype, it really is all about raising the level of client that you're dealing with internally. Increasingly, we're talking to CMOs. We're not talking to heads of comms anymore. They're still involved, of course, but the CMOs have much deeper pockets of money, and they're also looking for bigger ideas to really take their brand to the next level. We did something just last week with Skype. We came to the culmination of this global contest that we were doing. And contests, usually you can't get a lot of PR for contests. But again, tapping into the emotion and the authenticity of the brand, we were able to tell the story of people who've been separated over many miles, in many cases, worlds away, or continents away. Continents away. I just said contents, didn't I? Freudian slip, yes. And we brought these people together, one who lived outside of Chicago and one who lived in New Zealand, and they had never met before, and the brand was able to facilitate that meeting in person. Then we brought them to New York and put them on the Katie Couric show, and we then told their story in a video, and last week it was, Adweek's commercial of the week. Because we're looking at the marketing budgets, it just changes what you're able to accomplish, and really the channels in which you can promote the content that you're creating.
Andreas?
Yeah, to take up the point, I think for us, we set us a goal in the company. The one goal is we want to do 50% of our revenue we want to do with marketing. Now our revenue is 50 million US fee income. We want to do half of that with marketing and only half of that with PR. The second is we want to do 40% digital. But what comes with that is one thing I would disagree with some of you in the first panel. As a PR agency, we can't be generalists anymore. At least for us, we defined we have to be specialists. We have to have a lot of specialists. It started that we brought in own journalists. The texts are not being made by consultants anymore. The content is made by journalists and experts. The same with those videos. I need to have creative video producers that are the best in the market. I need advertising guys, designers, and so on, because otherwise the marketing departments wouldn't speak to us. But the first experience was that the real hot digital guys wouldn't like to work for a PR agency. They think it's boring. And so we bought a company, so we are buying companies, but we are buying companies and leave them their brands. And we bought a really hot digital agency, what's called Fork Unstable Media, and there we have now people from Australia, Spain, from all over the world working in this company in Germany. And so that gives us, and the most important thing then is, of course, getting them to work together, that they produce something that's extraordinary, other companies maybe can't do. That's our way to deal with this part, and we might be able to sell for marketing better this way.
Jonas, you've been, I think a lot of your work goes through dealing with senior marketers. What are the lessons you've learned from that?
Well, I agree with you when you say we have to have some people with advertising experience within the agency, and we have both creative directors and planners from the advertising industry. But where I think we are different is that we are obviously a much smaller agency, so I think we can be quite flexible when we come up with content-driven ideas, because we don't have to come up with ideas that provide work to our content producers, because we don't have so many content producers. And that also makes us different from the network agencies and from advertising agencies, because I think we can be a little bit more free. And I think when we work with marketing departments, I think they sometimes turn to us because of that, because they're not looking for an advertising idea that necessarily puts their creative content producers in work. They want to see something different. Usually the clients don't really know what it is, and quite often we get content briefs without the marketing department even knowing what the content should help them with. And that's, I think, is a problem when we started out by discussing, is it a hype or hope? I think in one way, clients put too much trust in content marketing sometimes. They want to produce video without knowing why. And bearing in mind that every minute, 100 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube, it's really hard to break through. And I think you need to start with some kind of business objective before you start just producing content. And that's where I think sometimes the clients are not really mature when it comes to content marketing. And there we have to propose something different compared to advertising agencies.
Okay. Claire, how does this affect you? Are you seeing a level of immaturity with clients when it comes to content?
We're finding a whole range of things. So our Quebecer is our social media agency. They're planners. They attract big clients who enjoy the planning process. Hope and Glory is a business that actually attracts the marketing directors who want something to fulfill an idea in a very exciting way. We've got a broadcast team who get the business because they are approaching it in certain ways. So I think that we're dealing with either marketing directors, heads of comms, HR directors, CSR directors, because what we're trying to do is find the widest range of budgets we can get and try and attract those different budgets and talk to them in a way that they feel comfortable about it. So on some of those budgets, it has to be massive amounts of planning and control in those pieces, and others it's about really exciting parts of it. So I'm looking at is where do we get the budget from? Where is the most ability to get budget at the moment? And for us, the new place that we're getting it from, which seems to be quite considerable, is the internal comms part. And obviously for anybody here that's dealing with anything to do with crisis, we know there's an unlimited budget for that as well. So we're trying to become much more focused on the crisis budgets and HR budgets because they're new. And we have other businesses that can try to do some of those others. And perhaps there are some times that we at Lansons can't do them quite as well as some of other parts of the business that do it.
So the best approach is to create an employee crisis.
Well, we bought in, we bought in Hillary Knowlton's guy who did it, and we've got a piece of business within weeks of getting on board.
I just want to stay on this topic of employee comms, because I think it's interesting from a content perspective, and it isn't really discussed very often. What are the kinds of content that you're finding is effective, and in what situations are they being used?
Okay. When you're in situations that are highly regulated, and if you're in a creative company that's the case, then the material that you've got can't be that flexible because it has to go through massive amounts of compliance, so the legal teams are all over it. And so there are huge amounts of, you talked about specialists, so we're specialists in not knowing a great deal about our market. That means we can help control those sorts of things. So they like things that they can clear in advance, they feel comfortable in advance, and that has to be the business, the CEO, and some of the major C-suite team talking to their staff to reassure them. And sometimes that's quite tough to know what you can actually say. So one is that they need to keep a dialogue going with them to put back into the staff that it's business as usual as much as it can, that those staff are highly valued and that they are part of the program to actually move forward and create change. And then in many cases, you've got other parts of the business you are going to have to fit that story into other parts of the business too. So we do a huge amount of filming. And whilst other slightly less regulated organisations can do much more online stuff as well, and then take a lot of their internal stuff off into other mediums to play back to them, quite a lot of ours is having to stick to highly regulated, controlled, internal video content that goes and answers lots of the questions for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. In one way or another, all of you have talked about how important it is to bring perhaps different types of skills into your agencies to meet the demand for content creation and content marketing. How difficult is it to do that, given that the traditional PR agency model sometimes doesn't always seem purpose-built for someone who's worked in the digital industry, or someone who's worked as a copywriter or an art director, someone who's worked as a planner, even someone who's worked as a journalist? How do you create meaningful careers for those people? Does it require any kind of restructuring? Andreas, I wonder if I could put that to you first.
Yes, indeed. That's the most important thing, as some of the markets for talents are really kind of tied up, and you have to give them a good surrounding and where they can develop themselves. And we see lately, the guys from advertising, they are more hot and working in PR because they see that lately they win awards with that. Then there's another point of thing, they like to learn from each other, so that's why they should join an agency maybe where there are other guys, they can have other experiences. But another thing that's a bit difficult, to have so many specialists, it's really expensive, and you always have to think if you really have enough work for them all the time. A journalist can do everything, but a specialist maybe not. And so there are some obstacles to it. It's the market, it's on those things.
Jonas, how do you see this? I think you've hired a number of, say, copywriters, art directors, and planners.
Yeah, I think we don't really come. I'm the only one of the founders of Jung who come from PR. The other ones are more from concept development and events, and so I think we kind of have a close link to advertising and to creativity in our DNA. So I think it's not such a big step for a creative from an advertising agency to walk into the doors at Jung, but I think there can be a huge challenge if you are a very traditional PR agency and you bring in a couple of creatives from the advertising side. It might, I don't know how you should handle it, but I'm sure there can be some difficulties.
Chaim, have you found this?
I also think what an independent agency can do, I think we can work more with outsourced production and freelancers. I think that's a really good way in not having to have everyone employed within your agency, because of course that can be expensive, and you can end up with teams of 6 or 7 or 10 or 15 people sometimes. So it's a good way for an independent agency to still tap into content marketing without having to build the whole structure within the agency.
Maybe one short point is what I really admire about the Northern European agencies, like the very creative agencies in Sweden and some in England and Holland. They have creative directors, and the creative directors are powerful. And in an ad agency, the creatives are the most powerful guys. And in PR, we were used, okay, some agencies are now a lot have designers and so on, but they are sold by the like consultants. It's the wrong way, because like those creative people, they have to set the rules, and not the consultants. That we have to learn from the ad agencies. That's, I think, what you did perfectly, and that change. If you don't do this change, you won't get a real creative, in terms of design, agency.
Yeah, just going back to the point, at our agency, we've actually gone out and said, what is our core? Our core skill set is media relations. So we've gone out and, thankfully, or depending on what perspective you're looking at it from, there have been a lot of journalists who find themselves, out of work. A lot of very talented people. And, it gives us an opportunity as a very flexible independent agency to go out and hire the cream of the crop, bring them in to help them shepherd our content creation efforts. What's important to them is they're continuing to practice the craft that they love and essentially, trained for. They're coming in for our brands and they're telling their stories in an editorial fashion, which is exactly what the brand is looking for. It maintains the authenticity. They're writing, whether it's long form, whether they're helping to create video content. So I think that's the way we've approached it, and it's been incredibly successful for us. Not only that, but I think the traditional PR staff that we have are able to learn from them and really expand their skill sets. So at the end of the day, we start to grow PR professionals who aren't just media relations specialists. They are well-rounded in creating all kinds of content, whether that's content through traditional channels or content that's going through more direct social, digital, online channels.
Okay, I just want to ask one more question before we throw it open to the floor. I think we'd all agree there's a lot of content pollution out there. There's so much content. I mean, there's too much content. Are you guys getting the right metrics from your clients in terms of how you measure the success of your content? And if not, what do you think those metrics should be? Claire, maybe I could start with you.
That's quite a tough one, isn't it, in terms of the metrics, because I think in quite a lot of the stuff we do, the clients are what they're looking for is very determined. We know exactly what they're trying to do. It has limits to it. We can work within those limits. And we're focused on some type of information flow that's quite important. Some sort of evaluation is really difficult, I think, because are you looking for behavioral change? Are you looking for some greater knowledge from or sympathy from certain audiences? Are you looking for sales? All those things are really important to actually set off from the beginning, to actually know what it is that you're trying to actually embrace and focus on. Certainly from us, we're a much more cause and effect type agency where we start from a strategic point and we try and create programs that are focused on that. But I think with stuff that you're all talking about, you'll come on to talk about, which is all the Google Analytics and all those sorts of things which help us know a little bit more about the direction of which we're taking things are important. But I think it's quite tough. I'm glad it's going more into better knowledge about what we're doing it for. I think it's much better.
Jonas, interested in your views. I mean, I see a lot of content campaigns where it seems like the primary goal is to create buzz. How valid a metric do you think?
I think there are many content campaigns that are too disconnected from a business objective or a brand objective, and I think that's where it has to start. You have to ask your client what the objectives are for the business and set the goals accordingly. And if you want to drive sales, you should measure sales. And if you want to hire new employees in a recruitment campaign, you should measure how many employees you hire. You shouldn't only focus on reach or buzz. Of course, that's part of it, but that's not the end of it.
Do you find that, Andreas, are you finding that clients actually accept the premise that content marketing can produce business results?
I think we have to reinforce them on this, and we have to advise them on what results you can get. In the beginning, it was they wanted to have Facebook friends, but now we tell them if you have great content, you can really get higher in the Google rankings, and that's giving your brand something. And I've even seen with the car industry a program where it was a management program. They wanted to have €100 more spent in every car they were selling. And so we came up with a program of producing those clips, like showing how the navigation works, the more expensive navigation, or how the automatic backdoor works, and it sold. They made more than €100 more per car, because like in Germany, it's a special market. People tend to order a car up front, and then they have some time to look up everything, and so they could look this up and back order things for this car, and so that made sales.
Chaim.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, a couple years ago, it was all about likes and follows, and now it's about engagement. Now it's about shares. Now it's about an action that you're getting the people who watch the videos, read the articles, to actually go and do something. And sometimes the content piece is very successful, and campaigns may fall apart when folks hit your website, the website that you're driving them to, and they're not clear on what they need to do. So all of these things need to be thought about as part of designing the campaign. And I agree 100%. Starting from the get-go and asking the client, well, what is the ultimate end goal? What's the business goal? Whether it's sales, whether it's referrals, whether it's just some of them just want web traffic, more web traffic, or downloads of an app. All of those things go into designing what action your content is meant to elicit from the consumer who sees it.
Thank you. I think we've got a couple of minutes if we have any questions from the audience. Richard.
Okay. So to that brilliant point around measurement, and it links to the article you were writing the other week, Arun. Chaim, Skype, great example. What was the objective, and what was the sort of deliverable off the back of that?
Sure. So this was really a brand campaign. The 10th anniversary of celebrating the 10th anniversary. There wasn't a specific call to action from the consumers. However, there have been campaigns that we've done with a very specific call to action. 2 years ago, during the holidays, Skype sponsored free Wi-Fi at 50 airports throughout the U.S. And we created content. We actually created an interactive map where consumers could go and find out which of the airports they could get the free Wi-Fi in. But the ultimate goal of the campaign was to get consumers using a free Skype Wi-Fi, or actually a Skype Wi-Fi application, where you can actually use your Skype credit to pay for the Skype Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi minutes that you're using. Instead of getting a subscription, you're paying per minute. So all of a sudden, the goal there was to drive increased usage of a lesser known one of their products. And the results were overwhelming. The client was like, wow, this was amazing. And the brand manager was thrilled.
Any more questions? We have one there.
Thank you. My name is Mauricio Ferro from Colombia. I'd like to ask you, you were mentioning that now it's not much about likes and follows, but it's more about engagement. Of course, that's pretty much what we're trying to do with many of the brands that we manage in our markets. But what are the trends in measurement? Because, of course, the CMOs, what they want to do is show results to their companies. So how do you measure that engagement? Of course, we've come up with some creative ideas of how to do that, but it is all about success. How successful was a campaign, and how much real engagement was there to those campaigns?
So increasingly, the social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they're now giving you the engagement metrics right in their brand dashboards. They're telling you how many times the content you created was shared. They're not only that, they're telling you where it was shared too. But the other thing that measurement's allowing you to do is digital lets you cheat a little bit. I'll give you a really good example. If you're running a multi-channel campaign, you can seed links in different channels and say, okay, this channel is driving the result that I want, this channel is not driving the result that I want. And you can actually change up that campaign on the fly. That's the beauty and power of digital. So things like that, making sure you're looking at the analytics while the campaign is ongoing, whether that's Google Analytics, whether that's Facebook Analytics, all of those things, are must-dos now. They're not afterthoughts. You're not measuring after the fact. You're constantly looking during the campaign and tweaking it accordingly to get the best results that your brand wants.
Okay, thank you all so much, and thank you to our great panel.